Are we here in this world to survive only? Well, I don't believe so. I believe that we are here to live, to be alive. Welcome to the death of the authentic. Hello there, pretty people, humankind. How are we today? I have my coffee here. Thank God, it's the best thing in the world. So, how do I persist in this life, and despite my very, very humbled and small history? So, are we ready for some trigger warnings? Stuff that we should do, because there's so many post-traumatic people around us. So let's do trigger warning. Pow. I gotta be honest here, I am 100% anxious about this episode today, and it's mainly because we are building this sort of parasocial relationship between me, aka the YouTuber, and you as the viewers. As been said, I am constantly trying to dismantle any hierarchies and authoritative relationships that exists. So it does include this one. And of course it will make me anxious. Because this third space that we have here, the camera and YouTube and me here, is something that is still growing and it's still like understanding itself. So I'm gonna be 100% brutally honest here also. I'm trying to understand, what do I do once, I'm publishing this. I'm publishing details of my understanding without mentioning how I got to this point. Yes, sometimes I do explain, but it means that I will have to be very vulnerable here in this channel and in general. And this vulnerability is something that I learned that I have, but it's not that I can carry my body, this vulnerability all the time without boundaries. Otherwise it will consume me and I will collapse. And by the way, I collapse very easily. This is part of having CPTSD and eating disorders and other everything. It means that I collapse very easily. And I have to be to gain boundary in this kind of discourses, especially when it moves outside this alibi that we're both witnessing and participating in. Now I'm talking to you after years that I learned to manage this kind of vulnerability and manifesting the boundaries between me and you and me and other humankinds or other animals. But it also means that regardless of those boundaries that I manifest, I still have somatic based experience. And I have a lot of disassociations and symptoms. And our somatic body just tells us everything. And even if we don't understand it when it happens, most likely in retrospective, and even not all the time. So today I will speak about I just saw a human just cries and running in tears in the street. I wanted to scream and ask something, but they ran so fast. This is part of me being very vulnerable. Like, I hear something and I'm 100% with all my senses with this experience. It's very hard for me to put this boundary, but I'm trying to manage not only to put it for me, but also for others who eventually can want this kind of quality. You know, I cannot run away after them. Not today, at least. You know, so in today's episode, I'm going to speak about what brought me to the questions of what does it mean to live and be alive if I carry so much pain. And even if I don't carry so much pain, just in general, we're living in a very, very specific times, okay? And meeting the death of the authentic every day is very oppressive. Like, literally, think about it. How many more comments and I'm gonna like soak about my body hair and like sexual and daily harassments that I like experience? How many? Like, for real? And it's not only that. It's not only that. There's so many other oppressions that suffocated me or us. And it takes so much courage and will to learn this. I'm still with this person, like, who was running away. Like, I'm so gentle. I'm literally crying. So sad. I'm like, even when I hear a baby cries, I can cry because I know what they need and I know that their parents won't give it to them. Or like even seeing homelessness. You know how hard it was for me in New York, where I know that I'm very poor and I have nothing to give, but just like sometimes just like, whoa, are you okay? You need water? This is basic. People in New York are just looking at homelesses as if they are already dead. And their body's just like, yeah, move. You're making my path longer. And I'm not like this. And I don't show my vulnerable side that often. Especially not when I speak. Sometimes it's hard for me to be critical and be eager and be like, hey, you know, this is what we're talking about. At the same time, being with empathy and like vulnerable and present with my emotions. So I'm here, learned so much about these experiences and how to let myself be just as I am, and I'm here to share with you some history look, but not linear directly. We are here to talk about stuff that persistent until today, not only then. So, bottom line, coffee first. So, when I was 8 years old, I was sexually abused by a relative, my cousin, as molestation. And I was experiencing at the age of 8 years old again, severe disassociations, severe panic attacks. And I did not know what happening. My parents did not even understood what was happening. My father was figuring out that I had probably a brain tumor or something. But no, this is not the case. Also, I started having like suicidal thoughts, OCD. I started having more and more disordered eating. And after my parents found nothing in every medical examination I had to experience, I started going to therapy for my first time. And it was something that I remember as fun because we were just playing games. Like, I used to come to their clinic and we would play. Sometimes I just snapped, like literally on the couch. And I don't know what was told to my parents. I don't know, sorry, what they got to know about me or to learn. I don't know nothing about it. But eventually we stopped. I don't know even why we stopped. Nothing about it is familiar to me. And at the age of 9, my classmate, young boy in my class, sexually harassed me and touched me. And at the age of 10, I went to a dietitian for the first time. And this is where I got to learn that many dietitians and nutritionists have eating disorders themselves, because they had. The one that my dietitians, when I was 10 years old, they had very thin eating disorders. So I went there because my psychopathic, vulnerable, narcissistic mom told me that I'm fat. And this is basically how I also start to internalize and depressively assimilate this kind of gazes on my body. So at the age of 12, I had my first suicide attempt. And at the age of 13, I had my second suicide attempt. Listen, by the age of 13, it's obvious that I had some problems. Obvious to many viewers. But my parents, my dad, also vulnerable narcissistic person who was workaholic, I did not see him when I was like young. And as I was mentioning in previous videos, like my grandparents are Holocaust survivors. So they were both raised very abusively and poorly. They were very poor. So, you know, all of those are absolutely generational trauma that passed to me and my sisters. At the age of 14, I really developed a very severe depression. And my eating disorders were very visible. And at the same time, I started dancing professionally. It was kind of my way of telling my parents that I know what I'm doing and I know what I want. Now, I was a teenager. Even before that, I was called a golden child. This was my nickname because I was so submissive. I was fulfilling whatever needs everybody wanted and fantasized and needed. When I was 8, we moved from Rehovot to the Moshav and then to another Moshav. We were like moving from home to home. And I was doing like home chores. My mom used to send me like messages or call from work, or I, even as like 10 years old, I was like doing phone calls for her, text, mail, faxes for my mom. I was a people pleaser. I pleased my parents and every person who had some sort of authoritarian relationship on me. Even my older sister, she literally abused me my entire life and I hated her. While I was performing as if I'm smiling and happy and lovable and love her. Like when I see old photos of myself, I know that like people could see that I was in pain. I see that I'm in pain, like in the photographs. But avoidance and omission and those kind of personality disorders are common, and allowing those kind of symptoms to just continue without being discussed, approached, or even like with some intervention. So I was continuing to be a very, very, very sweet young girl, very girly. I was wearing like makeup, push-ups, I was showing like my tits, my ass, shorts. I was very, very showing my feminine quality, but not because I wanted to. More so because I knew it would be much more acceptable. I knew I would get the attention that I want, and I knew that my mom would love it. And my dad, he was missing, so he didn't have much say about it. Yeah, and even like growing up with this kind of relationship between my parents, who was very toxic, very, very fights all the time, aggressive, passive-aggressive manipulations. My mom is a terrible person. Like, I witnessed so much violence, even on myself. Like, yeah, I knew that how am I perceived is the main question to get much more validation from people around me. And when I started growing up and getting more and more professional within dance world, I also learned how to maintain this kind of happy girly, like, ooh, I'm happy, with this like lipstick and everything. I would like do all these kind of routines, you know, makeup and beauty and diets. Of course, my eating disorder were very much alive, so I was very, very inside of it. And of course it all came from my parents and my society and like the culture that we have. It's all inhibited. This is part of persistent traumas. Now, back then, where was I and the term persistent trauma, like galaxies apart. Like even learning what persistent trauma is took me years, even to differentiate like how this girly girl look and habitus is actually part of these persistent traumas, or not to say about the control of the bodies and eating disorders and the diets and my mom's craziness and neurosis about our bodies, her children's bodies. So by the age of 15, this was my life. I was already saturated with those kind of things. Like I grew up in poverty. So I grew up in poverty, and you know, after the years, my parents got bourgeois and bourgeois, burgundy, you know, I don't know how to say it anymore, but they moved to the middle class, and I was still carrying these implications of being poor, like why I was the golden child until the age of 15, because even when we went out to restaurants, I was looking at the menu, looking at the lowest price meal, and this is what I wanted. And my parents were all like, oh my gosh, you're the most thoughtful kid, you really always choose the most cheapest meal. Or when I became vegetarian, which was in a very early ages, they used to force me to eat meat and hide meat in my meals, because they did not want me to have like vegetarian lifestyle, because they were fans of meat. Or not to mention that they never ever bought something for me especially for vegetarian life. I never eaten tofu unless I, like, later in life when I got to eat something. But at my childhood home, where I grew up, no tofu, no other replacements. You either eat meat or you don't eat at all. We will not take care of you. And it's saturated again with so much thickness of oppression. And even in the age of 15, like, it's so hard. Even if you're like in the most richest family and you're not in Israel by chance, who has its own complex, aka watch my elephant video to understand some of it. But living in Israel is very hard. It's very oppressive, and there's a lot of post-traumatic people here. The environment is very, very traumatic. So at the age of 15, I was still performing the best image that I could sell to get validation, and also to make people around me, aka my parents and my loved ones, happy or satisfied. But things got worse and dismantled eventually, because this is the natural qualities and flows of life. There is no such thing hypernormalization that can be sustainable, because it's not. Nothing about the death of the authentic is sustainable. Therefore, at the age of 15, my mom had a very violent, aggressive breast cancer. And consequently, it really worsened and accelerated her narcissism. It was terrible. Not only she was sick, very sick, but she was creating these crazy manipulations because she's sick. She did not allow us to be sad, to fight, to cry, to be dissatisfied, to be angry. None of those emotions were allowed. She literally said to us, I am sick, you cannot feel this. Now make me this, now do this for me. Now, like, and I was very, again, I was people pleasing, so I did everything. And eventually, consequently, my eating disorders got worse and worse, so much worse. And dissociative symptoms became more common, and gender and like dysmorphia and body dysmorphia became more common, and depression became more common, like the suicidal thoughts. It all became more oppressive and alive within my world. During those years, the life at my home were unbearable. And I was also making my own shifts where I tried to create separation from my family, that I decided to move to this very fancy high school for dance department in Tel Aviv, which was crazy. My family were very exclusive. We were very, very closed. My parents did not let my older sister, she was prima donna, like 100%. She did not wash like dishes until like the age of 23. And it's crazy, like the differentiations between me and my older sister, and how I was very pleasant and she was not at all. But I took this role. This is a role. I had to manifest and perform the qualities of this role. And it was very hard. Things got worse, despite the fact that my mom got all the procedures that she was going through. She did radiation, she did chemo, and she took off her breast. Like, we were all with her at that time, but she was very manipulative, and her narcissism got so worse that I couldn't speak with her about anything. And even when I got to learn that I have eating disorders and it's serious, I tried to share this with her. I was like sharing with her. I was like telling her, Mom, I'm not eating. Like, I go to Tel Aviv, I wake up in the morning, I do all these roads, and I dance until night, and I barely sleep, and I don't eat. I just dance all day. And it was noticeable that I started losing more and more weight, but my mom told me that it's good that I'm losing weight. She told me that I do have a big butt. Like, who says stuff like that? But this is how I grew up, and this is just a glimpse, and it's not even that terrible. My mom is 10 million times terrible than that. But I was very, very eager to fulfill my dream, to be a dancer. And at the same time, fighting eating disorders with this kind of environment was impossible. And at the age of 16, it was my first forced hospitalization. Let's take a deep breath here, because this was a pivotal point in my life. Learning what it means that your illness can no longer be hidden. You no longer can hide the fact that you have eating disorders and be hyperfunction and be the greatest student, the greatest daughter, this golden child. I understood what it means to be raped by governments, by institutions, by hospitals, mentally raped. And also sometimes, like, I was in a refeeding position. You know what refeeding is? When your body can no longer digest food. It literally vomits it because it doesn't know you need to return to liquids, Ensure or Zonda, and where I pulled it out because it was so, like, the obsessions and the control and mind implantations that the death of the authentic carries is very strong, super strong. Like, if you would talk to me at the time that I was like in my most worst symptoms, I might be able to understand what you're saying, but to regulate the symptoms, it's very hard. It's very hard to do that. Furthermore, with not supportive or environment, or like even like opportunities to rehabilitate by your own terms, by my own terms. This hospitalization, it came while I was in high school, and it was very, very intricate to finish high school, to finish my high school diploma. But I'm a very, very weird and rare functional person that I was able to finish my bagrut, which is like the high school diploma, very excellently. I don't know how, because I was in the hospitalization and I was doing all of this, and even in the hospitalization itself, which I will have a whole chapter about hospitalizations, but I learned to be even more sick. So it got worse, nothing got better. Maybe because I was forced on it. You're forced to eat. There is nothing worse than that, especially when you have eating disorders. It's literally, there are so many compulsive acts that you will do. You will lie, you will do so many bad things to other people just not to eat. And you even say very, very bad things. I will share with you at that episode. But for now, I'm gonna I'm going to speak about like how not obvious it is that I graduated high school diploma in such state. Not to mention that it was all happening while by the age of 17, almost before 18 you finish your high school diploma. Like at the age of 17, my mom was like, I don't wanna take care of you. She literally, we had crazy fights, a lot of violence, abusive violence, words, physical, where she would literally grab me and throw me out of the house and lock everything so I won't be able to return. And this is where I got really homeless. So this kind of radicalization that was happening, I lost everything that I had. The ground was shaking underneath me, and then I collapsed into a hole, and I did not know how deep it is because I continued falling. I had no one. I had no money. I was living in friends' houses or in the street, or I used to steal my parents' car so I would have some place to sleep. And of course, it was all like while I had eating disorders. I stole money from my parents. I stole food. Very, very common for eating disorders behaviors or homelessness behaviors. And this is like the first time that I really understood that this is surviving. Like this is what I needed to do to survive and to fake that I live a normal life, normal in some way. And at the age of 18, after I finished my high school diploma, and my parents and I started being bulimic, and this is something very common in eating disorders. There are displacements between eating disorders, the and also general disorders. It's very common that like from anorexia nervosa you will move to a narcissistic person. It's common also, but I was starting to throw up and to vomit more and more. Remember, I'm in Israel. At the age of 18, you have to go to the army. Israel Defense Forces is a terrible thing that exists. So I had to state to IDF that I cannot go to the army. First, I hate the army. Secondly, I would deteriorate if I will go there. Third, I knew that I'm lying to the IDF. Let me explain this. So in Israel, you have to go to the army. It's in the social and interactions, this discourse. Like when you're 17, grown up people already like ask you, what are you gonna do? What are you planning? You already go in some stage of interviews for the army. And my parents, who knew I'm sick, right? We all knew that. They practiced with me what kind of questions I will get in the interviews and what I should answer. They literally manipulated me, and of course I did it because this is what I used to do, to lie to the IDF that I'm not sick and respond so I can get the higher ranks. You need to get ranks in order to be stated in a very, very secretive or high-ranked positions. My parents are very nationalist, like very much, and they're very Zionist. So for them, it's an incredible shame not to go to a very, very high-ranked position in the army. Not to mention that I was like decided that I'm not going to go to the army. For them, it was the most shameful thing they could ever experience. Beside the fact that they had me, and they already told me for years that I'm the reason for their shame and everything, you know. I was probably born to take the responsibility of their own persistent trauma and generational traumas. Today I'm cutting out these years of generational traumas, but back then I have no tools. No one taught me, especially not my parents. And it was actually my doctor who was pushing me to get out of the army and saying to me that it's crazy that I'm lying, it's crazy that I will go there because I will die. And it's very common, super common for young people to die in the army because of these reasons. So many suicides, like it's crazy how much, so many. But it's not only about what happens once you go into the IDF, because I never been there. It's about what happening after it, and once you admit that you will not go there. Like where I grew up and where my parents' house until today is, in a small moshav in Israel. And in moshav it means that it's very, very natural spaces, no buildings, and there are small groups of families, and this is it. Everybody knows everybody. And every year there was this big ceremony that the parents used to make for the children who will enter the IDF. Because of course, there are many people, and Israel in general is nationalist. It's very common. And so my parents forced me to participate in this ceremony after panic attacks and severe symptoms and fights where I told them, I'm not going to the IDF. Why would I participate in that? I will humiliate myself going to a stage and telling everyone in the moshav, all the families that they know me and know you, that I will not go, but will participate just because my mom, she's a very psychopathic, narcissistic. She did it for herself, and what my parents told me is that they do everything for me, and all of this is for me, and I need to go there because all of this is for me. It's crazy, like how the social oppressions and the persistent trauma force us to shape, and I shape-shifted. I just did. But once the eating disorders were out there and I decided that this is it, I'm a homeless person, my parents will not help me, I don't have where to go to sleep and everything, I decided that fuck it, Yeah, it was very hard to remove all the pleasing features that I have and had. Of course, it will never go away. And now I try to regulate it, but I was learning that while I was unlearning the qualities of hiding and hiding the illness from myself. Now, after the age of 18, I got to learn that I'm sick, but I did not want people to know. I mean, it was still my secret, and I was still very symptomatic. So the whole thing about having this disorder is to maintain as you are living a normal life. So I decided to work so hard, being in a very vulnerable position, moving from home to home. And I gathered some money and I went to this company who got me a job in Canada. Like, these Israeli jobs where you sell things. But it was better than what I had in Israel, because in Israel, I did not have home, I did not have a job, or at least a job that could provide me enough money for rent. I couldn't do anything. Getting out of homelessness is so hard. And this company offered me a home, car, and a job. And I was like, yeah, I'm going. And this was hard, but I went to Canada. Oh, even before I went to Canada, like, I was already raped twice. Like, it's very common that humankind who got assaulted in younger ages unfortunately won't have the mechanism to understand when it comes later in life, once it happens. So it's easy to reproduce, especially when there's so much sexual violence. So I was raped by a neurosurgeon who was working with me at the time. It was painful, and it happened multiple times. And also by a criminal I was easily targeted. I had nowhere to sleep. He knew that. He took advantage of it. And lucky me, at the end, I had instinctive fight that got me away from an even more dangerous situation. But it all, like, when I moved to Canada, I was like, I need to let go of this crazy country called Israel. I hate this place. Like, I need to leave it all behind, even though it was a fantasy, very deep fantasy. But this is what I did. So I went there, and I lived there for 6 months, and it was terrible. It was hard. I loved it because I learned that there is a potential of a better life somewhere. It's not Canada, it was not this job, it was not this apartment, it was not these people, but I discovered the potential. And this was also very, very strong pivotal point for me. And I also got raped there by another person. And I was sexually harassed, like many, like people harassed me daily. It was also hard. And I was, again, people pleasing. I did stuff that I did not want to do. And I also had eating disorder, so I lied a lot. I had binges, and days that I couldn't sleep because I couldn't vomit all the food. Like, it was so hard. Eventually I returned to Israel. I knew that I have no space in Canada, and I knew that I'm embarrassing my family, and I still wanted to please them. So I, by chance, got inside to Art and Design University in Tel Aviv. I was supposed to go there, but I decided to cancel it because, again, I knew from within that this is not what I want. It's what my parents want and what they want for themselves, not for me. And it was hard because in this time, I really learned that I can take care of myself. I worked non-stop. I also stopped eating and displaced my eating disorder into purging type, where I was not eating for like 2 days, and then I was binging everything and throwing it out for 7 times, and then I go to sleep, wake up, go to work for like, I don't know, 12 hours doing the same thing. Like, this was my routine. And I knew that I had to make money. So this was the path to make it, especially if I needed to pay for my own studies, because I knew that despite that my parents got richer and richer, they will not assist me because they haven't. Like, imagine that in all these years, I used to call my father and beg for money, and he always used to say, you're old enough, you're grown, you know to get it all by yourself, you don't need my help. And I'm like, yes, I'm asking for money because I need your help. And he's like, no, and this is it. Like, yes. So when I worked, I got some money. I was able to pay for some sublets, and I saved some money to go to the university. And I decided to study video art. I did not know why. I had strong intuition about it, but I got into Bezalel. Do you know what Bezalel is? Bezalel is the most respected art university in Israel, not to mention it's very respected in Europe in general. It's like the best in Israel in general. And I remember that my mom was like telling me, Hilai, you need to understand it. You need to go to other interviews and other universities because it's super hard to get inside Bezalel. Like, don't go there. Like, don't go to the interview. She was like trying to persuade me not to go to the interview because she did not think that I will get in. But I did know that I will. And I started my bachelorette degree when I was 20, which in Israel considered extremely early. Can you imagine? Like, people here usually go to the army, and up until they're like 22 or 26, they will not go to the university. So they will only start by these ages university. How crazy that is. Like, when I moved to New York, it was not like this. Well, there are some pros to this scenario because there are more mature people in the university and the first degree, and it does change the kind of discourse that there is. But this was my life, and I was doing it, and I was very proactive. I was sure I'm gaining this community that I ever wanted. But no, life shows us, no, this is not what we want for you. And I was very sick. Again, none of the illnesses ever got better at those times. They only got worse and worse. So it was all while I'm having my first year at the university. Like, I'm having severe eating disorders, and I'm still learning and functioning and bringing works and making studio progress. But then two things happen at the same time. Really at the same time. Now I'm going to bring again trigger warning here because it's needed. So, firstly, I used to have a loved one back then when I was 20. His name was Jacob. And he died from a car accident. At the same time that I myself almost died from swallowing by accident the toothbrush that I used to use to throw up. Today I don't use those for sure. And it's very triggering even to speak about it because I know how triggering it can be for humankind. But I have to also speak about it because it was very, very traumatic, and I know that these are stuff that happens. I know what I experienced and what Jacob has experienced. Those stuff happen quite not rarely. So this is where I learned to ask myself, am I alive or am I just surviving? And if I am alive and not just surviving, what does it mean to live? Like, how to live when this is my life? I did not have any answers then, but I started asking the questions and was very patient with the answers. And it was hard. Until today, it's super hard. So at these times when I was 20 years old, I also started like having more daily routines of self-harm. So this is where I learned that there is a need for me to learn how to get better, how to minimize my symptoms, and how to stop reproducing those kind of secretive and toxic relationships between me and the people around me. So what happened is that during my BFA, I was hospitalized voluntarily twice. Imagine, I'm doing my first year in the university, and then in the summer break, I'm going inside a closed ward for eating disorders. While I was inside, it was terrible. It was just on vacation times. There were no doctors, no psychiatrists, no nutritionists. I literally got inside, forced to eat, to start eating. Like, it's crazy how immediate it is, and it's painful, literally. Your whole body is in pain, and you have no one to support you beside the nurses who will offer you a Clonex or Valium if you have panic attacks. And that's it. And back then I did not have the medical, like, cannabis, so I could not have any other medications. And it was very hard, and I got myself out despite the doctor's orders, because I couldn't be there. I had no support, and the symptoms were controlling my mind too much. So I returned to the second year, but then COVID started. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm 21 years old. I just got out of hospitalization, and now there is global, worldwide COVID pandemic. How do we live? I mean, all those questions became extremely more prominent in my daily thinking. And when I was doing my BFA, I was also I was documenting my life, my hospitalizations, my disorders, everything. I mean, I really wanted to be the greatest student. I did not know anything about films before, or cameras, or video, or editing, nothing. I learned everything mostly by myself, because apparently in art academia and art education, you need to do mostly everything by yourself. So I was intensely documenting everything in the quarantines, from the classes, from my own symptoms and life. And I was very, very deeply immersed within therapy. I got very, very, I was able to communicate to my father in some way, and to create this financial arrangement where he will pay for therapy alone, because otherwise I will die. And since he's a doctor, he was like, okay, you're gonna die, I'm gonna pay only for that. Nothing to prevent it, nothing to help you, just for the therapy. And this financial arrangement was something that I could get, and I'm still thankful for, because it's not obvious at all. Not obvious at all. So many parents don't do that, but it was still not enough, unfortunately. Also because the quantity that he wanted to pay for therapy was not enough for what I needed, and communicated that I needed. So I was very immersed trying to maximize the therapy that I do get. I really, really took these questions of what it means to be alive and to live. So I was like, it was in every part of my body. So I decided, again, voluntarily, to go inside a second hospitalization while COVID. It changed my perspective about hospitalizations and how the medical world works and activate itself in such crazy times, such in the pandemics, where I was finishing this hospitalization, but I realized that no matter what, this loop that so many sick people have of getting inside and outside hospitalization is tightly related to the fact that inside the hospitals there are protocols that reproduce this loop. They will never give or change the protocols that exist to prevent this chronic illness to return. And they really treat you differently if this is the second time that you are in the hospitalization. If this is your first time, they will give you the maximum time, maximum doctors, maximum therapy. If this is the second time or more that you are in the hospitalization, you will not get all of those. You will be there barely 2 months, barely. Sometimes even like less than a month. And it's sad. And this is part of the loop that gets all of us in and out. And even when I got out, I relapsed after a week, even less. And most of the progress that I made was with so much hard work from my side and so much care from the psychiatrist, the nutritionist, and this is it, yeah, and the therapist, but it was not vital accommodation. And it was not, there was no so much care. But it was this kind of integration that allowed me to learn to eat. And I really thank my nutritionist, because it's such a hard job. I found a very rare nutritionist who is against diets, who hates when everyone speaks about diets, because through her perspective, every food is a food. And this is how it needs to be discussed. And yeah, we can accommodate for our bodies, but vital accommodation is not diet. Vital accommodations is minor adjustments within the crazy range of foods that is available in this world, in the earth. So I know it was a lot, it's still a lot, but at the age of 22, I started reading more and more about whatever there is in life, philosophy, sociology, about eating disorders, about everything. I really wanted to understand language and why do I have no tools in life. At the same time, I'm really finding my voice. It's super intricate and not obvious at all. I realized that by saying what I need and being accurate with my intention gives me so much. And also be encouraged to be with the other persons, humankind who are near me, who also experience and the effect that I bring every time. You would not understand the Hila that was performing like a decade ago and the Hila now. Two different Hilas look the same maybe. And this mindset, I was planning for the long term. I was like, okay, I'm living this kind of life and I want to stop surviving. I need to get richer. I need to have more status. And I was like thinking of paths to do that. And like MFA for me was the path, because academia is a very solid path for status. It's very linear, but it is a path that exists and many people walk on this path. So I was like, I need to graduate my BFA excellently so I can follow on to MFA abroad. This was my dream. Like, I worked so hard for this. And on my third year of my BFA, I, of course, got sexually harassed by my professor. Why not? Why not, right? And then I filed a complaint. And then I realized all of these stories and all of these feelings and narratives of being a KillingJoy feminist, which means I will complain about everything, especially about the professor who showed a video of his penis in this class and whispered to me in my private 101, because this is what you do in Artacademy. You do 101 mentorships and it's very abusive. And he was like, touch me, feel me. This is what he was doing to me. And I was like, okay, listen, dude, no. I don't need to see your penis and I don't need you to whisper me things. Like, I filed a complaint and then I learned that those mechanisms to cover up the harassments and sexual abuses and violence occur within the academia are forced by other professors. First, I talked to the head department and she was gaslighting me and forcing me for hours of talk to speak with the harasser for the professor. And after I spoke with him, which was traumatizing, I spoke again with the other head of the department. And then after her lack of accountability and understanding what to do, I spoke with her advisor. And then I spoke with the sexual harassment conduct person in Bezalel. And then after her, I spoke with the advisor of the dean. And then after her, which are all women, do you understand what it means to speak with so many women and queer people within the academia who gaslight me, who tell me you did not go through any harassment, you did not go any of this, what you're doing is making uncomplainant, your complaint is invalid. Those are stuff that I was told. So by the time I reached to the dean, I was having one-on-one meeting with him, telling him everything. I made protocols, positions, like I changed so many things, and I was not the only one. We were a group of people who did that. And this is where I learned that once you speak about sexual harassment or make a complaint in general, your social circle will judge you, will dismiss you, and will abuse you. And you will lose most of your friends, because rape culture exists, and for many people, harassments are something that are nothing to be dramatic about, especially when it's gender harassment or just in general gender violence and sexual violence. So I lost all my friends and I got bullied, literally in WhatsApp groups. I lost everything that I ever built for. Even the connections with the teachers, with the professors themselves, who were like, again, judging me, talking to me, like the organizational abuse of authoritarian relationship in order to make you silence, in order to make you doubt yourself, in order to eliminate you from the academia is real, is super real, and many female and queers never finished their education because of that. And because I knew the statistic of that, I was like, no, I'm going to show you, I'm going to finish, I'm going to do the best artwork there is, and I'm going to be the most successful person. Again, my somatic body and my symptoms were harsh, very harsh. And not to mention that at this time, the therapist that I had did not want to speak about sexual harassment, about the way I speak about it, about my gender questions. I was experiencing the collapse of hypernormalizations simultaneously by the age of 24. Like, I realized that not only the academia is a hypernormalization, that is a team performance. Many people in this institution work together in order to maintain this perfect image of progressed art education, while they're covering sexual and gender harassments, while they're abusing authoritarian relationship, while they are preventing good artists to really become artists and getting fake artists who are stuck in their own asses into higher positions because they are pleasing them. Also, like the therapist who I was like, this therapeutical hypernormalization, where I trusted her. I was sharing with her my guts, and we made progress of the somatic body, of my somatic body together. But what does it mean when my therapist is not able to speak about gender and sexual harassments and topics? What does this mean? Like, what kind of oppression and depressive assimilation there is in the therapeutical and psychiatric institutions? This is all a hypernormalization. So going through all of those, it's like shedding and brutally shedding. And the last year of my studies was a living hell. There was a moment where I decided not to go there, to so many, like, daily panic attacks. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I couldn't stop vomiting. I had no friends. They boycott me. They were like canceling me because I was speaking. I was so lonely, and I really decided I was like, yeah, I will move to the other academia. Who wants me? Who will give me what I need? But Bezalel knew that I am poor. They knew that I have a scholarship, and they knew that if they will say yes to some of my criteria, which I send them by emails and everything, to help protect me, they will be able to persuade me to return to the university. And let's pick one moment and small footnote that there are many governmental and like, you know, these organizational contracts that is very capitalistic. So in Israel, I'm sure that in the United States it works differently, but there are still contracts that are like removing responsibilities from institutions. In Israel, for every person who graduates, the university gets 60K. So they knew that if they will persuade it, they will get more money. And this is part of the honey trap that I got. So when I realized, when I returned, that they lied to me and they are not going to do whatever they told me to do, and that I have every possibility to sue them, and that I will probably win because there's so many evidence, I decided, no, I'm gonna change everything. I was able to work with people within the academia to change the protocols themselves of the academia. I created an exhibition within the academia about the harassment on the academia. I was part of creating a panel and a lecture about harassments in Bezalel. Like, and I also was like, yeah, I made literally the best work in my class, and I graduated with honors. I was experienced this kind of reproduction of being oppressed in the maximum and being sick with illnesses and persistent trauma in the maximum, while I was like also being the greatest student, being very, very excelling. And it's not, again, I don't know how I did it, to be honest. And even today, when I think about it, like, how did I do it? Like, I don't know. I have this kind of force in me that I don't know why it's there, but it's there, and I was willing to do whatever it takes without understanding the full consequences, but I just did it. And when I graduated, I was like, finally, I can move away from this toxic university and like move abroad, like move on with my life. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna move to live on my own. I switched my therapist. I moved to a different one who was able to speak about anything, who was like in the like relational feminism, which is a different kind from what my previous one, which was very, very Winnicott and Freudianic discourse, and understanding also this kind of differentiations between the therapeutical discourse was part of the way the hypernormalization dismantled, because I needed to learn what other possibilities I had to make options for me, despite the fact that I don't have that much options. I was trying to take care of myself, take care of my body. I lived on my own. I was trying to keep aside money, and I was working hard on my application for the MFAs. So after completing my BFA, 7th of October happened. Like, the Israel and Hamas war began, and it shifted everything globally, like all the plans that I was making, and even the way I perceived myself. Like, I was so dissociative and symptomatic at the time, like when it happens. And it was not only the fact that I was witnessing a genocide that was producing these moral injuries and this persistent trauma. It was also the fact that there was a trigger for the generational trauma for the Israeli people from the Holocaust, because in every government, you're a citizen. In every citizen has this kind of contract with the government that the government will do whatever it takes to protect us, the citizens. And the Jewish never had this in the Golan and the diasporas, and they fantasize that they will have it in Israel. And after the 7th of October, everyone, all the Israeli people just acknowledged that this contract is not valid in Israel, despite everything. And it really created a deep earthquake. It was hard to stabilize myself in Israel at such a turbulent times. Not many people could work, not many jobs were available. So many more and more post-traumatic people. Like, you walk in the street and you don't see men at all. You only see female bodies and children. It's surreal. I cannot imagine like other countries that are in war for years now. It's probably the same, I don't know. But it's so surreal. And I realized that I had to move out sooner than I expected, because I was like, I cannot live in this country. I cannot. I just cannot. I know I'm disabled and everything, but my ethical sides understand that despite that there is Israeli-Palestinian groups who are huge in here, the violence that exists cannot assist me to rehabilitate of my CPTSD. And I do need more. This is what I need. And I want to mention that there is national insurance here in Israel. So I'm going to explain here for one moment about national insurance. So in the United States, there is this kind of social security number, right? It's sort of the national insurance in the United States. And in Europe, they also have this kind of their own national insurance. So here in Israel, we have it. If you want to get some sort of help and allowance, you need to go through hell. And again, I don't know how I had the power, because I know that so many people cannot do this. I know so many people with CPTSD, homeless people, junkie people, so many people who are 100% can be defined in Israel as citizens, as disabled people. and get stipend, like monthly stipend for that. But just to go through the interviews and to the psychiatrist and everything, it's like living hell. It took me years to learn that I can be considered as disabled. They don't give it to you as, like, they don't show you that you have rights. No. But I got to know this in my hospitalization when I learned that other girls got it. And I was like, am I disabled? Like, it will save my life because I can barely make money to pay rent, not to mention for the eating disorder symptoms, which is expensive. And I was, after years of process and interviews and paperwork, I was so persistent, crying, panic attacks. I don't know what I was going through, but I was like, I'm getting this. I have to do this. I have to get it. And eventually I did. And now I'm like thankful for my persistence. At the same time, I'm aware that this path is the path for hell. And this is not a vital accommodation for people who actually, this is non-performativity 101, right? What is non-performativity, as I mentioned? When there are names, institutions who bring out names such as inclusion, diversity, or let's say national insurance, it's supposed to give you equal rights or the accessibility for rights. No, zero accessibility. You need to learn so much about your rights to learn, in order to learn how you reach out to certain people who will guide you how to learn to process. It's like this. And even now, when I'm like emailing them, I'm making calls, I'm leaving voice messages, no one returns to me. This is why it's so hard. It's like, we have rights, but it's excruciating and full with oppressions just to be like, give me my right. This is my, it's written like that I have a right. And in New York, it was even more terrible, like, because transparent disabilities, unless you don't have an arm or you don't see or you don't whatever, you're not disabled. And to be honest, I was even, people minimize me even more so because I'm from Israel. They were like, oh, you're so white privileged, like, your disability does not seem like, and I'm like, what does this means? What does this means? If you minimize my disability and you make me repeat the fact that I'm saying to the academia, I'm saying to the colleagues, I'm saying to my roommate, I am a disabled person who needs A, B, C, D. That's what I need, nothing more. And they're like, are you sure? And then later I hear them talk about me, saying that I'm privileged and I'm white. Like, it's even more harder because there are much more capitalization of the body and there is much more persistent traumas. So this whole national insurance thing is extremely important. It is vital, but the way it is working right now is 100% not efficient, not effective, and is not helpful. No. And let me tell you a short story. You know, you are disabled in Israel, you get national insurance, so you're qualified for some assistance from, you know, NPOs and stuff. So I was part of an NPO program, and I had this kind of tutor and a social worker and dietitian, people who was supposed to help me. So my tutor was someone whom I worked with, and I was trying to teach her how to help me. And it was a time where when I had my previous laptop, and it was shitty laptop, old one. I had it since 2018, like years I had it, and it was collapsing. So I was like, okay, I don't have much money. I need you to help me to find the cheapest place so I can find these types of computers. And I told her what types of computers I need, because I'm an editor, I make films, I need heavy stuff. And she was telling me that she knows someone who can help me. Long story short is that she was a negotiator of this deal of me buying a computer, and at the time I was like getting bad hunch from this person, and I even told her by WhatsApp that I don't want to buy from him. He's like, he doesn't seem professional, and something about it, the way he speaks and the demands for the payment, which was crazy high, is weird, and I don't get a good hunch for it. And she was like pressuring on me, like, imagine, through national insurance program where I'm the disabled person and she was supposed to help me get better in life. She was pressuring me to buy from him. And while I bought from him, I got to learn a few things. One, that he is interested in me, and he thinks that I'm pretty, and that he wants to date with me, and that he can whisper stuff to my ears. Secondly, that he wants me to keep all of this in secret and never tell this for my tutor, who is the negotiator for the deal. And thirdly, that it all happened before I even got the deal completed. And then I was like telling her, listen, I have bad hunch. And I even told him, I will never, secrets is not something that I do. Like, you cannot ask me such stuff. And I'm very much not interested. And then he told me he's in open marriage and that his wife is her sister, my tutor sister. And I was like, fuck, what? She was pushing me, making me as a people pleaser. She forced me to buy from the husband of her sister something in a crazy price while he's harassing me and telling me how beautiful I am, telling me that I need to keep this in secret, stuff like this. It's all on WhatsApp. While I got to know that the computer is fucked up, is a mess, doesn't work. Things got escalated. I sued him, I won, but I got kicked out of this program. The tutor and the social worker refused to take ownership of the authoritarian relationship and the abuse of authority that my tutor has performed, and the pressure that she has made on me, all written on WhatsApp, to buy this computer. But the social worker and the NPO program wanted to keep their name clean, wanted to keep the hyper-normalization, normal. So they kicked me out. Like, how crazy not ethical this is, where I'm a disabled person, by law, needs to get help, and the people who needed to help me abuse the authoritarian relationships they have, force me to buy something from their relative, and then kick me out of the program? By that time, my somatic body was like a wreck. And until today, I'm in constant pain. My body is like, I can't. I seriously, every day that I wake up is in pain. I suffer daily. And those kind of things are persistent traumas and reproductions and events that crush so much of the foundation that I'm, with all my energy, I'm trying to build. And like it brings tears to my eyes, because I cannot explain how hard it is to try to go out of poverty, to rehabilitate from sexual assaults, and even from the age of 8, from the generational trauma and the abuses that I had experienced at my home, and the homelessness, which is so hard to shake out of your body, and still being extremely persist with knowing what I am here for. What voice do I bring? What do I need in order to rehabilitate and acknowledge that the current flow and the state of our reality cannot allow for me to have the things that I need to rehabilitate. But I will still persist and say that this is what I need. At the same time, I'm acknowledging that I will probably not get it. That even when I get it, it will be through fragmentation of abuses, fragmentation of authoritarian relationships, through fragmentations of success. And it brought me to really understand that really, unless I will have all the potential in the world, like of having acupuncture, hydrotherapy, immersive analysis therapy, psychiatric and nutritionist assistants, and even going to dance class, to Gaga classes. It's so vital for me. It's such a vital accommodations, but can I really get all of those in order to rehabilitate? Probably not. Not right now. I couldn't before. Maybe I will in the future. But right now, for the state that I am 28 years old. I was going full speed for the dream of MFA in New York, where I realized this is another hyper-normalization. Nothing will change that, no matter how hard I will work on myself, no matter how empathy I will show, no matter how much compassion I will show toward myself, or boundaries. Those are how the system works, and fantasies of being understood within this kind of communities, even in Parsons, where I really believe that they are good people, but they excluded me so painfully while I was saying what I needed, and maybe I did not express it the most accurately to my attention, but I was trying so hard, and I realized that I'm doing anything that's possible and anything that I can do in order to make my life better, but I cannot do it all. No matter how much I believe or learn to believe that I deserve better life, because I know now what live means for me, and I still don't get it. And this point was so hard, because it was the first time that I had tried to create suicide, because I believe in myself so much. And this is a bit also like a God complex thing, but I was like, I'm working so hard, I'm doing everything in my powers, and I'm trying, and I believe in myself. Finally, I think that I have something to bring, but it does not work in correlation to the protocols and manifestations of performances there are today, and what people want from me, what the professors at Parsons wanted from me. It's actually inhumane to want this stuff from people. You know, I had this forced hospitalization after my suicide attempt, which also very traumatic. I was like stopping therapy. I returned to Israel, returned to homelessness. My Saturn returned, showing me that my somatic body needs a different time and spaces, and that my soul cannot heal in this kind of atmospheres. And this break that I took from therapy after 8 years of being very immersed with getting myself better and in therapy, and like trusting the process thing, after so much hyper normalizations, dismantling. I shed so many masks and performances out of my body. So many, and it's still painful, super painful. But it came through my art, through my sculptures, through the documentations and the videos and the script that I'm making, these texts. And even was the first time that I made this YouTube channel. Like, my Saturn return is going through my whole body and is telling me that I am important as I am. I am beautiful as I am. I am vital as I am, and that I will always shapeshift and change according to what my needs and the way the changes of my needs. And yes, that admitting that it will always come in correlation to this abusive world with so many persistent traumas, with so many violence and tragic realities. Because I know that I'm not the only person in the world who is also CPTSD and eating disorder, or who is also homeless with eating disorders, or eating disorders with body dysmorphia or gender dysmorphia. Those are symptoms of persistent traumas. Those are symptoms that show us that we carry the death of the authentic. Before even we talk about it, the death of the authentic of other people. And this is where I am now. And I started therapy with Effie Ziv, Dr. Effie Ziv, who wrote Persistent Trauma. And in the midst of this crazy Saturn return storm, I'm also experiencing Pluto in Aquarius, like all of us, who is just on my stellium and telling me that all the values of this world and the successfulness and the performances are destructive. And this shedding that I did is just here to show my new skin. I am not on my own. I realize that. At the same time, extremely with my loneliness in this deep ocean, I'm not alone. And I cannot grow or heal without love. Love is so important. Without boundaries, I cannot grow and heal without boundaries. And mostly, I cannot grow without recognizing that eternally I will need to expand myself, to add more layers, to ask myself all the time, as if I'm just a child again, asking this for the first time. What it means to be alive, and for me, and how can I live? Not survive, not only survive. Be receptive to changes, be receptive to mistakes, to problems, to complex emotions like fear, like terror, like anxiety, like loneliness. I want to share with you a small poem. From now on, I have no age, a poor little thing, with all my tragic history, which is no different from all the tragedies in this book. And yet, I am here learning that I will be alone with myself as with my old poems, without a mother, without a father, without a brother or a sister, without a blood relationship that does not diminish itself, authentic, saturated with loneliness that allows me to see the other, to build relationships that will grow together to maintain stable home for love, boundaries, and internal learning. So, TY you all for tuning in and staying here until the end. I am very much looking forward to seeing you in the next one. And remember that I'm here to say that the day that I will be famous, will have money, will have status and power, I will do everything needed in order to dismantle all of those. Okay? So, thank you, חתולי. אתה רוצה להגיד שלום? I'm gonna see you next time. נכון?